Hello, friends, both old and new. Welcome to the final episode of Good Omens discussion here on Music Makes People Come Together. Believe, as you can see, the cosplay that was promised has happened. Now, Amy and Ben were not able to make it tonight. They said they're going to try and pop in, but they have some familial obligations. But I do have a very, very special guest. And I will let him introduce himself because he's just an amazing person.
What is up? John St. Baptiste is ready as Crawley's vestigial twin going to the apocalypse. That is Con of Thrones. We're getting ready to leave and save the world. I will be looking like Aziraphale, pretty soon. All I got to do is get me some frosted tips. I got those baby blues. Yeah, look at me. No, thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here. And hey, happy birthday. Uh, as far as Amy's children go, I can't remember which one you said, but I am wishing a happy birthday. Shout out to Amy and Ben. I hope y'all are doing well. Not replacing you, I swear. Junior Bacon Cheeseburgers in the house. Thank you, Julianne. Bobby Catalano, Big Hearts, Mackenzie L. Burns, Peter Griffin, Zeta Alpha, and Bron Holler. What is good? Sasake, how is it going? Sasake, I swear, that's something they say all the time in the Expanse. Did you pull that from there? Beltawada. But for now, I mean, this is a great episode. I know everybody else liked it. And you did say this is a little different from the books, right? As far as how it ended.
Yeah, the I'd say the last act of this episode, about 50% of it is not in the book. And one of the things I'm really excited about having you on here for tonight is because you never read the book. So I can get that completely different perspective. And see what you think. Now, I personally liked the changes quite a bit. I do wish that Ben's curmudgeonous self was here so he could pick everything apart, because that's what Ben does, because he's awesome like that. And I don't mean that in a mean way at all. Ben, I love you.
He
But
loves curmudgeons. I'm a curmudgeon. And
yeah, but you're a different type of curmudgeon.
Yeah, I hate everyone.
Oh, Sasuke just popped in. Thank you so much. It's good to see you here, miss. But yeah, so it starts off with the trial. Which I think is kind of cool that it does like half of the episode almost in flashback. It's I loved how episode 3, which we talked about, the first half of episode 3 is not from the book at all, but it was well done because it shows the relationship that Crowley and Aziraphale develop over the years. But I think having this trial and shooting everything in flashback, I really liked how they did that.
Yeah, it's like a how do we get here moment, and then you got Crawley's flaming car coming in. Basically, all that was missing was a General Lee horn, but I don't think they can do that nowadays. But it was, that's one of my favorite parts too. I didn't get to really talk about that, but when he's just willing himself to not burn, just the will, and then God is Francis McDormand, just basically kind of talking about how astonishing it is. I do kind of love as well that it seemingly is all part of God's plan too. Kind of how, maybe it didn't go down exactly right, but it seems like she had faith in these two beings who are both angels. When it all boils down to it, just on opposing sides from the war in heaven. I don't know why I'm waxing so poetic here, but yeah.
No, I love it. And I love it when we get to, we're skipping ahead a bit, but I love when we get to, the angels and devils, and they really want this war to happen. And Aziraphale calls out, like, is it part of the ineffable plan? Well, it's part of the great plan. It's been written about. But is it part of the ineffable plan? Like, the whole point is, if God has this ineffable plan, these things wouldn't be happening. It's I think there's a really, really cool dynamic there. But yeah, so the death of that beautiful Bentley, and I love how Crawley is. I'm having a moment.
Yes. He said, I'm, what did he say? I'm still thinking about my car when he went to go take it out on everybody else. He said, he's still in the grieving process, which I don't blame him. And he even, thank the car for all its hard work. He's had that thing well over 100 years, hasn't
Yeah, just over 100 years,
he? That car is a vampire.
and a lot of people had asked what he was holding there that had come off the car. That's actually because it's an old enough Bentley that it had a wind-up starter.
Nice. That's what that was. Because I was like, man, that's the weirdest looking steering wheel. And then I thought about it, and it is wind up. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, it's because it's old enough that it had a wind-up starter. He had never used it. He had never got gas for the car.
That's
Like,
perfect. But he still carries it around with him.
Braunhaler, crank handle, thank you. I couldn't remember what the word was, what it was called. But oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
And
Crowley's always messing with those handles. Uh, yeah, we got finger guns, which pew pew pew. I'm akin to those. That's pretty good. Even though I still can't remember his name now.
Shadwell.
Shadwell. Why can I not remember that? Yeah, it's
Which
the
Spider
witch
Major
hunter army.
Shadwell? I'm not even going to try a Scottish accent.
It's just kind of perfect how the witch hunter army just turned into nothingness. That's really a take on how a lot of things just wither over time. Ideas, idealisms, even these sacred pacts, because basically they got rid of most of the witches, and it's still just like this fleeting organization.
Yeah,
With
it's like people who hold on to things that are, yeah, it's gone. It's in the past. If you go into, that's how I'm pretty sure most of Shadwell was written by Gaiman and not Pratchett, because Gaiman just touches on that a lot in a lot of his other books, and how, like, it might be good, it might be bad, but these are things of the past, and shit changes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I just wanted to keep the jaw in the chat. Want to keep yelling at the screen. It's not your finger. You're not doing anything with your damn finger. I just wanted to choke him. But it's still funny as hell. It's kind of that classic. It's a play on, you got the little person standing there, standing up to the big person, and not knowing he has like a crowd of people behind him or something powerful behind him, and he thinks he's the reason this big monster scurried away or fell dead. And you can play on that a lot of ways. You see that in a lot of storytelling. And I don't know the exact terms for it. I'm sure I'll learn it all one day. But there are these classic plays that you'll see that, I don't know, they work perfectly. I don't think you should change. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. You just kind of present it in different manners. And this was refreshingly old school to me, right? You don't see stuff like that too much anymore. Not that where it isn't cheesy. Like, this was brought emotion out in you when he actually points his finger and does the shit. At least it did for me.
Yeah, and speaking of old school, it's something that Amy and Ben and I have talked about on another episode. They don't do many SFX in this show. Like, almost all of the Beelzebub, and a new character we're introduced to, Dagon. That's all prosthetics, and I have to say Dagon's prosthetics were twisted. They were just awesome.
So since I'm horrible with names, I think that's registering with me. But describe Dagon.
The woman with scars all over her face.
Oh yeah. And then you had Michael. Have we seen Michael before this?
Yeah,
No, we did because they met with Beelzebub and them earlier in the season, right, or in the series. But
and I think it's funny that the angels and devils are consorting with each other.
well, that's kind of your
Trying
class.
to make this war happen.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a nod to the beginning where Crowley and Zeraphel were mingling with each other when should they or should they not have been, you know. But it goes back to they're the same, but just on opposing ends, and then basically you have this diluted line. I don't know. It's I think I'm wrong when I say that though.
Well,
It seems
it's
like
funny.
oh, go ahead.
No, you please.
Well, I like how there's differing versions of demons, and seemingly, I don't know if Crowley just stands apart or if we can assume there's other demons that aren't so keen on being complete evil. It seems like there are levels, right? Just like there are in people. And then you got evil angels. You know, it kind of turns it on its head. But
Yeah.
if you, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
Sorry, but if you do got any idealism, this hard line idealism, like all the angels are going off of, you're gonna get this. Dare I call it religious fervor, zealotry, to where you're gonna do anything to kind of for the greater good, you know, and you don't see that as a bad thing, you know, like sacrificing all these innocent people. Oh, it's just supposed to happen anyway. Miss
Right.
Carnell, what's going on? Triple X, huh? I'm just
I, well, it's one of the things, because like part of the whole story is that Crowley and Aziraphale have more in common with each other than they do with the higher ups as people, because they've lived in the world since the beginning with people. But also the higher ups have so much in common with each other because they're just these totally separated beings that have no concept of any, like I said, like they just want their war. I really like how they showed that dichotomy. And also, once again, I say this every episode, james James Ham, his acting chops are great. Like he's like Joffrey in Game of Thrones. I think I've said this before. Like it takes a lot to be a good enough actor that you like want to smack somebody across the face.
yeah,
You
he's
know?
severely annoying. But they're just alike, and that's like your only hope in life.
John Hamm. Sorry,
Yeah,
Sassy.
they're screaming at you, so it's okay, John Hamm. Uh, but that's a great point. They only have this one purpose in life, and it almost makes me sad for them. I didn't necessarily want to hit them. I was just kind of sad because they don't know what it is to have love or to have any type of feeling in this world. To only want to fight, but not even what are you fighting for? They probably couldn't even tell you. We're just fighting because we got to fight. That's what's supposed to happen, right?
Right. Right. No. I understand where you're coming from there. I'm just saying the way John Hamm does his acting. Like Gabriel is that smarmy, like, and he plays that kind of character in a lot of things. He's really good at it. Um, he's probably like the nicest guy in the world in real life, but I
I
think it's well
doubt it.
done.
I doubt it. No.
And yes, Julianne 89, one of the greatest lines on the fucking Archangel Gabriel.
And that was a really great plan that they went through, and without the Very accurate, nice and accurate prophecies of what's her name?
Agnes Nutter. Yes, we will get
Agnes
to that in
Nutter.
a wee bit
But
because that's part of the that's what that end stuff is. There's a significant chunk of it that's not in the book, and I want your take as a first time viewer. But
yeah,
so
but let's talk about Adam and the four horsemen and little girls kicking war in the knee.
yeah, well, I love they're walking towards them, and Azraphale's like, "We're gonna lick some serious butt," and Crowley's like, "Kick, kick some serious butt."
And then that gun, oh my gosh, that gun, it sounded like just the funniest fart when it went off. And it's like this just dud of a firecracker. It makes me wonder what it would have did if it actually hit someone. In the books, does it ever talk about what that gun would actually do?
Well, it doesn't talk about it in the books. In fact, that was like kind of added in, but
Oh, okay.
so it's a blunderbuss, which was one of the earliest forms of gun. And basically, it was just like a handheld thing that half the time would explode in your face. But you just stuffed a bunch of shit in there
Glass, nails,
and
anything.
pulled the trigger, pointed it and pulled the trigger. It was like a very, very, very primitive shotgun.
That's got to be the worst thing in the world to be shot with a blunderbuss, though. That one was a little longer barrel.
Yes, this is true.
But yeah, that's probably one of my favorite old school guns. I don't know why, I guess, but just because it's like jumping off a cliff every time you pull the trigger of one of those things. Um,
One thing I do have to point out, they flash away for a second to I always forget his name, but the neighborhood watch guy who's like just such a busybody and all. And he's talking to Adam's dad, and this is right before the credits, and he says he says your son's riding to the airbase. Don't blame me if he starts World War III. But also, if you're a music nerd, there's a very cool reference in there. I know Sasuke is going to get this because he says something about messing up his begonias, and that's straight out of La Danza di Figaro by Mozart, which I thought was pretty awesome. Yes, Sasuke, you know what he did to my prized begonias?
oh my goodness. Yeah, that's pretty good. Say, I don't know nothing about that. So you can make fun of me in chat. Just making fun of me all the time. How good does John look? Yeah. It's lovable Crowley. Vestigial Crowley. I love it. We're gonna make him put. I'm actually gonna get his irises tattooed while we're there. So we'll get that. We'll get that done with y'all. And no, it was interesting. Basically, the hope and the what would you call it? The friendship, love of children. Basically, drove off the four horsemen. Even though you can't kill death, right? War's a bitch.
Well, Death points out that if he killed him, it would end everything. And for any Pratchett nerds out there, the description of Death and when he spreads his wings is like straight out of Terry Pratchett. You see stars and the entire universe, or maybe something else. That's some straight up Terry Pratchett stuff. But
That was really cool shot.
yeah, but yeah, the kids. Yeah, War's a bitch. She's badass, but
I guess. Just kick her in the knee. That's like her weakness. That's the little spot on the big boss. And pollution. That she's what an asshole. just trying to dirty everything up. But I thought that was good, right? The power of love, friendship, nature versus nurture, which we're seeing all the time now, which is just a common theme. That's just the common theme of life. And, well, that's the common theme of this whole series is what would happen if the Antichrist got switched at birth, right? And he grew up in a loving home. We saw what happened to the fucking hellhound, got turned into dog forever, basically. That's hilarious. That dog.
Yeah. Well, okay. So with the baby switch, you haven't been on any of the other episodes, but in episode 1, they show a game of 3-card Monty when they're talking about how they switch the babies. Now, while we were in Nashville this weekend, I already promised this to Amy, so hopefully you'll be there. If I'm sober enough, I will teach you guys how to do 3-card Monty. Because I'm shady like that.
I used to do it on the street corners. Find the red lady. Let's see. Oh yeah, well we can do your eyelids, I guess, John. But I'd rather tattoo your corneas, and just everything. Put you through a lot of pain and suffering. But so Adam basically gets to choose his father, huh?
Yeah, that's really cool. The one thing I want to touch before that, how the world ending is ended. Newton and anathema. That's another thing that's straight out of the book, and I think is great. Is that he's like, well, I'm not really a computer programmer. In fact, anytime I touch a computer, it like breaks down. And she's like, okay, well, try and fix this.
That's all you gotta do. I think that's you, John. Did you see, like, oh, well, have they been watching me in my private life? Yeah, that's John's true character coming out right there, breaking computers and messing shit up. John has 2 buttons to push, a 50% chance to do the right thing or fix something. 99% of the time he hits the wrong button. 99 to 50% of the time, or 50% of the time, 99% of the time, John doesn't do the right thing. I don't know what I'm talking about. I am loving this hair, man. I am loving it.
Well, thank you.
Killing me. I do got to get a white suit now, so we'll figure that out.
But we go to the the angels of hell and the angels of heaven are getting ready for this war, and Dagon's given her its motivational speech, which I thought was great, and then like the whole thing stops. And I do love the fact that Adam confronted death, but unlike war and pestilence and famine, who, by the way, pestilence and famine, or I'm sorry, pollution, because the original 4 Horsemen, it was pestilence, but pestilence quit back in the 1920s because of penicillin. Threw up his hands in the air. Somebody else came in. That's something that's in the book that's not in the show, but I think it's hilarious that
that's good.
But I do love that in that confrontation with death, Death's like, hey, you took them all out. That's fine. You can't take me out, or it's going to end the freaking universe. If nothing can die, like even in a show that has a lot of humor, there are a lot of really impactful things about thought. Like, could you imagine if nobody could die?
To an extent. I mean, I guess it depends. You got certain things that are immortal, and it's possible that there are immortal beings, but for 95% of the universe, you got to go through the cycle of life and death. Now I will bring up the immortal jellyfish. If you haven't seen it, looking up. This jellyfish never dies. When it gets old, it just reverts back to its childlike state and starts over again. You can obliterate this thing down to a couple of cells, and it will regenerate its entire brain and everything. They're looking into it for studying for cures and longevity and medicines and shit like that. And that's a scary thing. I think that's something that humans are going to have to look for into the future. I think that may be a little bit of prophecy in your sci-fi fantasy realm, because we're going to get to where they're already working on trying to exchange bodies, and whether or not you can transfer consciousness, or if the next you is still you, if you're downloaded into something else. I don't know, but I think all science points to that happening, and I think it throws the whole universe out of whack, honestly, because you have to have this cycle of rebirth, and you can't have the dark without the light. Putting John to sleep here, though. But,
No, not at all. Actually, this is a movie I've not seen, so I'm pretty stoked about that. I just want to say in the chat, Julianne89 has a point that war, famine, and pollution are all man-made, whereas death isn't.
yeah, I mean, it's true. It's true. And Ron Holler, anything with super long lives and an immortal nature has a low reproductive rate. Yeah, it's either you reproduce or you're immortal. That's kind of the law of the universe. Even going down to the little, what do you call them? Fucking bears. They're called something bears. The little microbes that can live in space. But, man, getting into some crazy stuff. Sorry about that.
No, not
What's
at
up
all.
there, Alan Josh?
Dude, this is my channel. You can waffle all you want. That's what we do here.
I'm just throwing out stuff about immortal jellyfish and shit.
Hey, Bear Island Josh, what's shaking, man?
He will kill all computers, so it's okay.
Did you have anything else you wanted to discuss about the conflict between the children and the horsemen?
No, I don't think so. I think we got it, maybe. I think so.
I liked it. For any of you who are book readers, it's done a bit differently, but I think it was transferred really well. If anybody has a thought or opinion on that, I'd be interested in knowing. Adam, we see how actually powerful he is, because with Azraphale and Madame Tracy, he's just like, why are you two people? You shouldn't be two people. Be two people.
Be yourselves. Be yourself. Be yourself. No, that's so much power, and it's kind of astonishing. Inner child. And he did misuse it some, but shows a lot of restraint, especially for Spawn or Satan's demon seed.
Yeah, well, okay, so let's come to the conflict with Dad. Because I think, for one thing, I love that they got Benedict Cumberbatch to play Satan.
Are you a cumber snatch, John?
I mean, because seriously, I need to take elocution lessons from him. But I thought that was really
Sounds like an antidepressant. Depressant. Elocution. Try elocution today. Side effects are headache, dry mouth, irritable bowel syndrome, instant death, nanolons, slow clap. Okay.
But no, what were your thoughts on the whole confrontation between Adam and Satan?
thought it was very interesting. I guess, yeah, it's not really leaping to the conclusion. He just doesn't accept his fate. It's basically someone. It's that metaphor for there's no fate but what you make. Sarah Connor is the inventor of this. I'm just kidding. But he takes his fate in his own hands. He doesn't have to accept that. He has a father, and he accepted his basically adopted father, and goes into the power of the heart and what love and being loved can do for a person. And shit, I would be mad at him as well. And how much power does he have to be able to deny his father? Does that take power? How much power was involved in that, or was it just him denying uh, his fate, basically? You know what I mean? Or was it a combination of it? 'Cause, I
Yeah,
felt
well,
like,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I just feel like Satan, in this sense, couldn't overcome Adam's will to not want him, to not want him to be a part of his life or whatever.
Right, and it's like Adam says to Beelzebub and Gabriel when they're trying to talk him into starting the end of the world before Satan comes up. He's like, "You guys are just fighting about who has the better gang, and whose gang is best." And then I love the line when Gabriel says, God doesn't play games with fate. And Crowley's like, where the hell have you been?
Yeah, like, I don't know. He's just in his own little world sometimes. I think he's been in books. That's where he's been the whole time. And yeah, I know you cried when the bookstore burnt down. I know you had to, John.
I did.
Just had to
I did
throw that
cry
out
when the bookstore burned down.
there. And I think it come to a short conclusion, right? It ended fairly quickly for the end of the world, but the way in which it was done with the flashback and how it was portrayed in this episode, I think turned out pretty good. You're not sitting there saying, "Well, I wish they would have fought," or "I wish they would have did." Like, I'm pretty satisfied with this ending, even though you can argue that it's pretty short as far as what it's supposed to be, but it's literally subverting your expectations of the end of the world, like throwing
Yeah,
it on its head.
absolutely. I mean, it all comes down to one little boy, and he can make his decision, and he has free will. That's why he can make his decision and change things. Um, and I think that's it's really cool. I've always felt that this whole story, whether you're talking about the show or the book, is about us having our free will as human beings. Which you know how much of a Milton obsessed nerd I am. So I can go on about that for hours, but I loved it. Another thing I do love that they were. If you pay attention to the CGI on Satan when he comes out of the ground, he does have uh, 10 horns and 7 crowns,
Oh, nice,
which is straight out of the Book of Revelation.
nice. Yeah. Then they flow into the beast from the earth and the beast from the sea, which is the prophet and the antichrist, or somehow I can't remember. It's been a while since I read Revelations, even though that's very intriguing. Uh, yeah, crazy man wrote that, or depends how you look at that. But yeah, dude was in exile and probably fasting for a long time when he wrote that shit. But don't yell at me.
I'm not going to yell at you at all.
Um, yeah, I'd like to talk about some theology one day for sure. That's some the Bible has some incredible stories, kind of incredible history, and we know that a lot of it comes from older stuff. Like you can see it in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the flood. Supposedly Noah's father is in there, and you have Noah as the son of the person. Anyways, I'm getting into some crazy stuff with the Epic of Gilgamesh, but if you haven't checked out the Sumerian tablets, check them out. It's like the oldest known writing we have.
Definitely worth checking out.
Today, for sure. I don't know why. I'm just kind of lagging today. Sorry for talking so slow and putting y'all into a slumber. I hope y'all are sleeping well today.
No, you're not at all. So then we go to, Adam decides who his dad is, and his real dad comes up, which I just think that's an awesome conversation between Crowley and Aziraphale about how, the man who brought him up, that's his real dad, is now.
Yeah, and he's got a killer mustache. I love it.
That he does.
And he's, it's just a good dad. The power of just being a good father. You're never going to be perfect, and you're never going to do the right thing every time, but just being there, just giving a shit, it counts for something. It really does. And I like that touch. I really like that touch on that.
I think that's very important. I have to step away for just one moment. Would you like to plug anything that's going on your channel for a second while I do so?
Well, we got Con of Thrones coming up, doing a few things from there. We'll be doing a Cylon Johns and Jills. We'll also be doing so we'll have Amy True, Mackenzie L. Burns, and we'll try to get everybody else on a call on the panel. I'll be doing a podcast from there with my new podcast, The Fandom 3. If you haven't checked it out, it's on iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify and all the other stuff. Just Fandom 3, the place to be. Check out Mackenzie L. Burns too. But, I actually just really enjoyed Good Omens. It was nice and refreshing, a short series. And I don't know if they're talking about doing another season. I know there isn't any book material for it. And it seems like they've left that open, even though a lot of Christians called for it to get canceled on Netflix, which I thought was hilarious. Did y'all see that? It doesn't even come on Netflix. Any stories like this too, as well, seem to be blasphemous in the community, just because it's not the take that's, I guess, word for word, and it's a tricky thing, but it's easier to do stories like this nowadays than it used to be, because I don't think people are as sensitive about it anymore, even though we did see that fervent outrage to get it canceled. Yeah, Amazon's going to cancel Stranger Things. That's okay. Yeah, that was hilarious, man. That was hilarious.
Actually, there's a protest right now to cancel my Tinder account.
What the hell, man? No. Never say that again. What? Left. Oh my goodness, John. I don't know what to say or how to feel anymore, so you just Peter Griffin says giggity. He's liking that.
I also cancel my Instagram, my Snapchat, all of those. Just because I should not even be on the air.
Yeah, you should definitely not be on a Snapchat, man. Geriatric Snapchat shots from Djinn St and Baptiste. Actually, you're older than that. You're like hundreds of years old, you vampire. It's funny you'd call yourself Crowley too, practicing the dark art.
I do have a Snatch Chap account.
Oh my god. I bet it's a ginger Snatch Chap. I think we're getting a little bit Okay. Yeah, Crowley did invent Tinder, huh, Peter? I wouldn't doubt it. He just messes with all kinds of stuff. I bet he invented AOL Online for sure. AOL Instant Messenger, dial up. Oh yeah, he invented dial up. I think we're off track. Bring me back, John. Bring me back to reality.
We get off track a lot here, so don't worry about it.
I don't know who we is. This other person you have behind your chair.
Usually it's the usual suspects, but
I'm just trying to mess with you. You
uh,
split personality. I mean,
I see. So we move to the park bench. I love that the postal delivery man, who by the way was the sacrificial lamb, once again another Revelation reference, because he did bring the note to death that says "Come and see," and that's when the apocalypse starts. Um, but he's back, and he asks Aziraphale if he believes in life after death. And then we have a very touching moment where Aziraphale's talking about how he's going to take the bus home, and Crowley's like, your bookstore burned down. You can stay at my place.
Yeah, it was sad. I know you were sad as hell about that, John. I mean, you had to have a few nightmares after you first read it, and then I don't know if you even read that. Well, I know the bookstore had to burn down in the books. That's that sounds super redundant, but uh, I do. I think of you every time I see that bookstore burning. Like it hurts my heart for you and
Yes,
Agnes Nutter. Like Agnes, I feel for Agnes.
yes. And when all the shit was going down, there was a little patch of the book that Aziraphale found, and it feeds into something. So I just need to say to you, as any show watchers who haven't read the books, this entire switching everything does not happen in the book. I think it's great. I think it was really awesome. I think it was really well done. Basically, in the books, it goes straight to nobody's going to talk about it because neither side wants to address this. And I think this is actually one of the things that the show added that wasn't in the books that worked pretty well. And we'll get into that in just a second. But I love how Crowley says to Aziraphale, you don't have a side anymore. Like, we're our own side.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I just think Thelma and Louise. They even got the outfit for it. They're gonna hold hands and drive over the cliff. Then the car is gonna float off and just fly into space. I that's all they got is each other. That's all they've ever had. And I don't know how much they've really began to realize it since all of this went down, since basically the apocalypse started. Yes, they've been working together, but it's almost for convenience and just the semi mutual respect that they've built up over time, like helping each other out, do a miracle or a devilish deed here and there. I think uh, that's the beauty of it. Like how long this friendship has lasted, and that even God, even angels, demons, heaven and hell can't break up this friendship, as corny as that sounds.
No, that's I think at the core, at the root, that's what the story's all about. Now, some people are a little shippy about the whole thing. I can see that. I don't necessarily agree. Actually,
They
Neil
seem
Gaiman.
more asexual characters. I mean, you could see Crowley getting down and dirty, but it just seems like they're above sexuality in a sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but on the same note as it says in the book,
Right. They could touch each other.
Anyone who meets Azraphile thinks that he's, if I remember the quote exactly, gayer than a patch of monkeys on nitrous oxide.
What? Maybe. Could just be metrosexual, man. Oh,
But yeah, that's a line straight out of the book. Which
that's the case that I told you earlier. Crowley never had to crank it. Very true. Crank the car and crank himself. Anyways, boom, boom.
and so, okay, now here's the thing. You've watched this a few times, right?
1.5 times.
Okay. I think they played really fair with the whole body snatch thing if you rewatch it. Like it's like I said, as book reader, it totally surprised the hell out of me because it's not even in the book. But I think they played really fair with it. If you listen to the way things are pronounced, like the diction and so forth, and also with the body language,
Yes.
they
Yeah.
played really fair with the body swap.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, you could tell if you really look. It was good. It was good. But it was a nice surprise to me. I love how they did that. It's hard for well, it's hard to get a nice surprise over on TV watchers now. You know, there's so much out there. People use so many things incorrectly, and then you see it set up, blah blah blah. But this was done well, and I definitely agree with you on that. And just it started seeming a little off to me when it wasn't freaking out too bad about being there. Just kind of especially Xerophil. Usually he's freaking out about every damn thing,
Right.
and you kind of see that come out in Crowley when he's Crowley. When they kind of start to bring out the holy water. But I think when he realizes the holy water is coming, that's when he just gets really comfortable there. Because it seemed like he had a little bit of fear before that part.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Get more into that in a second. So Crowley walks into, or well, Azraphile goes into the bookstore. Oh, these are new. Because he had all these prophecy books, and now he has all these first edition children's books, which Adam remade the world after it almost ended, and I love the fact that it's all these like first edition children's books that are worth probably just as much, if not more, to the right buyer. And then Crowley, who's actually Azraphile, sees the Bentley, and it's totally repaired.
It's perfect, man. Those children's books. Did you happen to see which ones they were and if there's any significance? Because we do need to talk about if they're gonna keep going with this show. Because the change like they're making here, I could argue that they're leaving it somewhat open just in case it's popular enough they can make another season.
I didn't write down what all the books were, but I know they were all like older children's books. I don't think they're going to keep it going. I mean, I don't think that Gaiman would want to do that without Pratchett. There's the source material, but Terry Pratchett's been dead for like 7 or 8 years now. I don't think Gaiman would want to try and write a sequel on his own, and I don't think it would have the same. Um, it wouldn't have the same feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because you have the two different authors writing together.
I think it should stand alone, but when money's in play, and this was pretty damn popular, you never know. They'll butcher shit, and we don't. Gaiman could have had an idea from Terry a while back. That they could have talked about some type of continuation. I have no idea. I don't know
They
if he
had
would
talk
even.
about writing a sequel to the book, but nothing ever really came into fruition. And yeah, there's money involved, but I just don't see Neil Gaiman doing that,
No.
and especially with all the projects he has right now. And I love that he's so. That's why I talk about work that he's involved with every freaking Wednesday. I love that he gets so involved with his work, and he's really big about, like, okay, production is going to be done by me, and I'm going to have final say on everything. So it's not like certain writers we could talk about who,
Mm.
uh, yeah, don't really do that. And I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to throw any dynamite in the pond.
Shut up. Yes, Sasuke keeps getting recommended The Hogfather, which I have no idea what that is, Sasuke. You need to elaborate on that. It has me intrigued. Is it a dude that just is on a hog farm? Sounds like a really bad TLC reality show. Anyways, go ahead, John. So we have these trials. I mean, I tell you what, Gabriel's just above himself. Uh, and then you got little asshead with the gold teeth. What's that angel's name? It's not Raphael. It's
Sandoval.
Cenophael. And that's the one I really want to punch in the face. No
Yeah.
sense of any type. Like, doesn't even know how to talk or so or interact with people or anyone. It's pretty hilarious. But they're holding all their hopes on getting revenge for having their party spoiled. Like, we're gonna execute you for being a party pooper, bro. We didn't get to kill all these innocent people, so we're gonna kill you.
Right. Oh, exactly. And when it does get to that scene, I do love that. I don't know if you picked up on this. Far more into music. The entire show has had. Okay, so this is a book watcher thing, but I think you'll appreciate it. The book keeps joking through the entire book that any recording left in a car for 2 weeks turns into Queen's greatest hits. So that's why the most of the soundtrack is Queen music. And when they're sitting there in the park, the octet, the horn octet, is playing "Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon" from A Day at the Races, which I just thought that was a brilliant little touch.
Ooh, yeah.
But I just thought that was a really, really brilliant touch. But yeah, yeah, Gabriel, Sandophile, Ural, and Michael. I mean, they're supposed to be angels, but look at the shit they're doing. You know,
Yeah. But they seem just as much like demons. But that's when you go back to the same kind of beings. They're just on opposite sides of the rebellion.
right?
So it mucks up good and evil real good, man.
And
Really
it's like
good.
Adam says, you guys just want to fight about whose gang's better.
Yeah, that's it. And I think Brian Holler made the comment earlier that in the book, Adam's gang of kids is always up against like this other neighborhood gang of kids.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
makes
they
a little
don't
more
really go
sense.
into that much of the show,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was another batch of kids that like always picked on them, and it's like when you're in the lunchroom in high school and there's the cool kids, and then you and your misfit friends, and that's kind of what Adam and the kids are. By the way, we skipped over this, but I do love the delivery. The children actors in the show are freaking really awesome. And I love the way they delivered their lines when they were coming up against their nemesis, so to speak. Especially Pepper.
The great, the good.
She's a tough little broad. I would be very proud to have her as a child. I believe in peace, bitch.
Ha! I don't know why I just thought about this. I think it's because Sasaki put the greater good in there. Makes me think of Hot Fuzz, the movie. If y'all know what I'm talking about. the town that has the whole cult running it. The greater good. The greater good. I'm an idiot. But yes, the only problem I do have, and yes, you got this description from Revelations of the devil, but like the devil should never really look like that. That's just like a perversion of Pan and other satyr type gods. But you can go back into it. You could say you could reach as far as maybe it's a curse from God, but hey, Lucifer was supposed to be the most beautiful angel.
Most beautiful and most beloved by God.
But you know, I'm not mad at it. You know, whatever.
But I do like, as I said, that they actually did the whole like the horns and the crowns and everything. I straight out of the Book of Revelation. I thought it was just really awesome. Before we go to the end with Switch, Newton and Anathema. For one thing, she called him her boyfriend.
Wait, what? You can. What names did you say? Who are you talking about?
Newton and Anathema.
Remind me who that is. I'm an asshole.
The young man who works for the Witchfinder Army because he's
yeah,
a horrible computer programmer. And
my bad, man.
And he says, I guess I'm not a witchfinder. I'm not a very good witchfinder. And he's like, you found me. And we finally get the payoff on the Dick Turpin joke.
Yeah, Dick Turpin. You know, they used to sell some really good Dick Turpins back in the 1910s. You'd put them right there. Have to, I think you'd pat and rub. It burns a little bit, but Dick Turpins. No, I thought, you know, nice little corny joke to end it on. Be nice and cute. He reminds me of Beast from X-Men First Class, but that's neither here nor there. I do think she's very attractive. I was thinking that the whole time. So he's a very, very lucky young man. And the fact that he got off that easy with lying to her about being a witch hunter, I'd say he's a lucky man. He found him a good one. He better keep her. She gonna put up with that. So that's all I got to say. I thought it was nice how fate intertwined them, and then they used that in her prophecies of her great 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 grandmother, and that, you know, even though she has these prophecies, you know, she can't exactly, you know, they're a little Nostradamus-y. They're on the money, but you got to figure out a lot for yourself, and you usually don't find it out till right at the last second or when the damn thing's happening. I like how they did that. It wasn't that much of an advantage. It was in a certain aspects when you knew what to look for, but it wasn't like they had a super cheat sheet or anything. So I thought that was good.
Yeah, I agree entirely.
Is it just me here?
Figure out what went on Avatar.
Oh, take care, Bron. Holler. Have a good one. Have a good day. You're getting ready, heading out for work? Yeah.
There we go.
For getting up and coming out and hanging out with the Djinn St. Baptiste. He is the best Baptiste I know.
Ron Holler, the one spanner who rules them all.
Hey-ya.
I appreciate everything that you do for me so much.
There can only be one.
In the end, there can be only one. Yeah, exactly.
Sean Connery. Go to the rock, my man. Shaken, not stirred. Anyway,
So yeah, now we get into stuff that was totally not in the book, but I think was done quite well. Uh, the trials of Crowley and Azraphale. And I just want to know what your thoughts were on this, because as I told everybody in the chat, you'd never read the book. So,
oh yeah, I was like,
what were your thoughts on the whole trial scenes and everything?
well, straight up, I was like, assholes. Why you got to go ahead and kill these awesome characters, but we don't always get to have a happy ending. So I was just kind of waiting, and it was, because I didn't notice the switch the first time at all. I didn't really catch it. I figured something was going on, but when they got caught, I thought they were still trying to think of what to do. So they played that, like you said, they played the switch out very, very well, and they basically, tricked them into thinking they trapped them. And so I'm sitting here cursing at the angels, cursing at the demons, and then definitely cursing Michael. Which was a nice touch to bring in. I loved how that tiny little vase of water just was unending and filled up the whole tub. That was pretty damn cool. And then you just have this flaming pillar, which is a sight to behold. And you could see how all the angels were kind of frightened of it. That's pretty much the only thing that can kill them. Now, that makes me want to think, why the difference in what they've done? Is this a product of what God has put on them as a consequence for the rebellion? Does this mean that the rebellion in heaven before wasn't really, God didn't really have a side, right? You could take a couple of things here, like, why would God make them have different? I might be just looking into this too much, but why would God make them have different weaknesses and strengths if they're ultimately the same being? So something had to change for this eternal game that I like to call it. And you can, God is great, God is good, God is the creator. God's playing some games with people's lives here, and you
A
got to
game
feel
of
some sort of
poker
way
in the
about
dark with unlisted rules
that. Yeah,
for infinite stakes, and the dealer is always smiling.
yeah,
That's I think one of the greatest lines ever to describe life.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there has to. Yeah, that's why I don't. I see God as more of a ethereal being that like permeates through everything and doesn't necessarily, like, has a conscious but doesn't isn't embodied. But they kind of did that like this in the show, right? With Francis McDormand. You never got really any solidity to God, except God was this uh existence that hovered above everything. It was the narrator.
Yeah, yeah, we've talked about this on here before. I think it's
That
brilliant that if you're going to have omniscient third person narrator in a story like this, just make it God.
Yeah, and then having Francis McDormand doing the voice, it's just spot on right there. Classic voice.
Yeah, I thought it worked really well. Um, and the other thing that you and I touched on that I was wondering if you had any other thoughts about is, basically they're pissed off at Crowley and Azraphale because they stopped their little turf battle. Like, obviously, it's part of God's ineffable plan.
Well, something else that they stated, and I'll throw this at you, tell me what you think, was it seemed like they were also jealous of their friendship. Jealous of what they had, this humanity that they almost had in them. If you hear what they're talking, oh, your friend and this and that. We've been seeing y'all together, conversing with the enemy while they're sitting there with a demon in heaven and angel in hell. they're completely contradicting themselves. So I think there has to be some kind of jealousy in play here. What do you think?
Oh, I agree entirely. You know, it says in the first episode and also in an early part of the book when they're talking about how the whole baby swap happened. You know, when it comes down to it, the great goods and the great evils in the world don't happen because humans are wholly good or wholly evil. It's because they're wholly human. And the angels are kind of a, a magnified example of that.
Well, that goes back to why you could say the war was fought. Inevitably, Lucifer was jealous of mankind and God's love for man, and thought that they were the only beings capable of being loved, kind of. And you don't a lot of this is there's like one line in the actual Bible about Lucifer, and all the other stuff you have to say, well, maybe the snake was, maybe this or that. I don't think the snake was, because this was before the fall. I think the snake was just a damn snake. It even says that the snake had legs before that, and it was punished for what it did in the Garden of Eden. That's why the snake slithers on the ground.
Hey, I didn't fall. I hung out with the wrong people.
Exactly, Crowley. But you lost your legs for that, so I thank you for your sacrifice. But it just goes back to the jealousy of free will, because it seems like angels and demons, they don't have free will. Even though, yeah, they get to do what they want, but they always have to do what they want in order for this goal. They have an overlord. The angels have God. Hell has Satan, but then you have the free will on earth. And Crowley and Aziraphale have exemplified this by working together with one another, giving each other their jobs, helping one another when you shouldn't. And it's because they've been saturated with humanity. And it all goes back to the Garden of Eden and Aziraphale giving, was it, giving Adam the damn flaming sword. That was so funny when that lion come out.
She was expecting.
Aziraphale, where's the sword I gave you? Like God doesn't know where it's at. Oh, it's funny.
Yeah, something Amy and Ben and I talked about is is that great scene at the very beginning when Crowley is like, "What if I did the right thing and you did the wrong thing? Wouldn't that be funny?"
Yeah. That's be nice and ironic, I'd say that. Was it did he give Eve or Adam the flaming sword?
I don't know that it's ever stated. I
I
think
thought
he
I
just gave it
saw
to
Adam
them.
swinging it though.
But Crowley definitely told Eve to go ahead and eat that apple. And then he does point out something that I long before I read this book, like as somebody who gets really deep into theology and is a
Yeah.
person of faith too.
I know what you're gonna
I've
say.
always loved, like, kind of funny. You put this fruit tree in the middle of the garden with a sign that says "Don't touch."
Yeah, it's
Why
like
not? Why not put it on a mountain or maybe on the moon?
what you're begging for. Why even make it at all? But the tree represents, to me, like we're getting into theology here, but it represents man moving from hunter gatherer to basically an agricultural society, using technology, starting to use tools and manipulate the land like gods, becoming God themselves, therefore basically blaspheming God by not needing God anymore to provide for them. Does that make sense? It's all
Oh
kind of like
yeah, I
an
get where you're
allegory.
coming from there. Definitely from an anthropological point of view.
That
I'm
doesn't
talking
mean
more
that's
from
what it means, but that's like a
a
one way you can look
theological point of view. I'm saying, you know,
at it. It doesn't make sense
if
though.
it's
Why the hell you
ineffable, like, you know, if this is something that both Pratchett and Gaiman touch on a lot in a lot of their work. If God is both omnipotent and omniscient, then
Well,
it knows that this is going to happen. So there was a reason that there was that temptation. You know what I mean?
yeah, and Zeta Alpha, thanks, great point. Freedom of choice. Yeah, it goes back to free will. You're giving
Yes.
them free will, so you can't always give them nothing but good choices. If you don't have a bad choice to make, then there's no such thing as free will. If
Right.
that makes sense.
That's what Milton's all about. That's why I'm obsessed with Paradise Lost. It I've been obsessed with that book for years. I mean, shit. Before I decided that I wanted to make more money than a college professor, which is very little money, by the way. Um, I wanted to just teach Milton. I mean, that was what I really wanted to do, was just teach Milton. And I could talk about humanity and free will and what forever. But yeah, I mean, and that's what the story's all about, which we do get to at the very, very end. But before that, Shadwell and Madame Tracy,
You
she
mean
knocks on his door.
Shagwell? Boom, boom.
She's always left him like a little piece of dinner out front.
Yeah, he's like a stray cat.
Get away, you Jezebel! But then she like opens the door and she's like, after all we've been through in the past few days, maybe I set you a place at the table. Why don't you come have dinner with me? And he's like, oh, you want me to come into your den of iniquity? And it's really great because it kind of mirrors the Newton and Athma thing, because he's talking about how the Witchfinder army is pretty much over. And she's like, well, you found me, but I'm not a very good witch.
She still is a clairvoyant. She delves into the dark arts, and we would call you a witch back in the day. I would burn you at a stake, or see if you float. If you float, you're a witch. If you sink and drown and die, you're innocent.
Yes.
Oh, have you said?
And
Oh,
of course, how
Monty
many nipples do
Python.
you have?
Monty Python. If she weighs less than more than a duck, if she weighs more than a duck, she's a witch. They started deducing it. Well, if she sinks, she's a witch. Well, if a duck can float and she weighs more than a duck, then that means she's a witch. Oh my god.
Oh, yeah,
Classic.
absolutely classic. And the chat's going crazy talking about how many nipples people have.
I have 14. All the normal ones.
It's confirmed Johnny is actually a cat.
I have 14 nipples, 3 testes, and 1 big toe. Do the math.
Wait, cats have 8, don't they? Shade, where are you? You haven't done your cameo yet.
Yeah, you gotta milk them cat teats. I'm getting a little stat vibe from JSB. I'm digging it. Everybody, John, you said everybody calls you Lestat.
Lestat, oh my gosh. Lestat was like, obnoxious. I mean, it wasn't as bad as Louis, but seriously. No, this is my Crawley cosplay, Danny.
Also, I do run through a lot of band-aids with all these nipples.
And I'm 11 years ago Crowley. Because I can't pull off that fucking coif.
I think you can, John. I think you just don't want to. You would look like a cyborg machinist or something. I think you can do it. You don't even have to cut your hair. I can just swirl it up, put enough pomade in there, and just be a nice little poof on top of your head. Yeah. It's blonde.
And yes, Lestat was blonde, because he was supposed to be French Norman.
Yeah, John puts more of a Christina Ricci Wednesday vibe out to me. Wednesday
Christina
Adams.
Ricci.
Wednesday Addams. Hey, that's the best role she ever played. Them first couple Addams Family movies are pretty good.
I'm a huge Christina Ricci fan.
Hey, if it want, I don't know, man. There's if you look into what goes on in Hollywood, now I know why all these child actors are messed up because, well, you know, they do stuff. You've been seeing a lot of sex cults. Well, all cults are sex cults. They're just cults uh, getting done, especially that one in Hollywood, the Nexium cult. And there's been talk about stuff going on for years. Uh, it's just kind of a thing with the child actors. They get abused, and it's horrible, horrible. Anyways, yeah, just go look down that rabbit hole if you feel like getting depressed. But I accidentally heard a whole bunch of things about it when I was listening to a podcast, and yeah, man, there's a bunch of people getting busted for that crap now. Finally, I guess it's kind of harder to hide it nowadays. Huh? Anyways, I don't know. I'm sorry for just killing the mood in here.
That's okay. Uh,
I just got to think about Christina Ricci, and it's pretty semi
try and bring it back up. The delivery of the new prophecy book.
Yeah, so what's up with that? See, I'm telling you, they're setting up another damn season or something, man. Because this war
That's
has
straight
to
out of the
happen.
book.
It's just, huh?
That's straight out of the book.
But still, like with what they've done, and even if it's straight out of the book, they're still. Well, you even said that they talked about writing something later. I don't know. I'm telling you, they're leaving it open ending. Uh, because they still talk about how the war has to ineffably happen.
Oh no, I'm talking about when the book that Agnes had written years and years ago is in the box, and the box gets delivered to Newton and Anathema. The lawyer comes in with the box, and he's like, "Oh, we've been waiting hundreds of years for somebody to open this." And then he opens it, and there's a note written to him.
Yeah, talking about his cheating on his wife. He gone, but he left a note. He should have took the note with him if he wanted to get rid of all the evidence. Dumbass. But you have to leave. It's hard to wrap a story up completely and it'd be good. With that, not saying they're definitely gonna do any spin like another season, but like, I like stories with semi-open endings because you can kind of extrapolate what you want from it. If that makes sense. You can make the rest of the story yourself. Just like mysteries of how magic works and shit like that are better left to being mysteries with little clues as to how it kind of works. And you can extrapolate probably a few different ways that it feasibly works out and stick with which one you like because, hey, this is fiction and you get to have fun with it, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. In the book's left open, I think it's just, and I think the show's left open. I personally don't think they're going to try and do another show. I certainly hope not. But it's left open because the world didn't end. You know, and I think that's the entire point of that. But
Silentology.
Silentology. I'm stealing that from you, Julianne. Stealing it. I'm going to take it and just run.
You know, there's some Aziraphale Crowley fanfic, some intense ones out there. So that's okay. I was talking about she hadn't looked up any fanfic for this one yet, but I'm telling you, if there's not some intense Crowley Aziraphale fanfic, I would be super surprised.
Yeah. Oh no, it's out there. A lot of it you don't want to read.
I'm not
You
saying
don't want
it's
to read.
good. I'm just saying there has to be a lot out there.
But I do love what Newton says to Anathema. Do you want to be a descendant all your life? You know, when she's like considering whether or not she should burn the new predictions, and he asks her that question. Like, I think that's really odd. You know, do you want to be a descendant all your life, or you know, do you want to make your own life?
Yeah, and then I guess you could say it's still kind of an illusion because would it play out to the prophecies themselves anyway? And who the hell knows? And if there's free will, then why this? Why that? Why get hit? Why hit Granny with a baseball bat? And maybe she's an exception to the rule. One of these key constant players that has to be there in order for whatever ineffable plan there is to play out, right?
Yeah,
Maybe one person's got to take the hit. One human has to take the hit to not necessarily have complete free will. Because she, you can argue she does and she doesn't, right? She makes all these choices, but
well, her whole family's been
yeah,
following these prophecies and doing what they're told for hundreds of years. And I just think it's really cool. He's like, hey, do you want to be a descendant all your life? Like, or do you want to make your own life and not have to? So
hmm.
we go from there to the punishments from the trials, which, oh my gosh, I love Crawley in the bathtub of the holy water.
Just,
I could not stop laughing during that entire scene.
it was really good, especially when he's flicking it at the demons behind him. Oh.
Do you have a rubber duck?
And they did the little test to make sure it was real or whatever. Uh, yeah, they just sacrificed one for the team, basically. The
And
bowling
asks
ball.
Michael to make him a bath towel.
Yeah, and he does, and well, she and Michael does. Um, that's what's crazy because I guess don't they think that God has did something to them or made them different? They don't, or they've evolved beyond being what they are. I can't remember what the exact term was they used.
There's holy water and then there's hellfire, and so and they all think that they've just gone native and
Yeah,
like
that just doesn't work on them anymore.
right,
Something.
exactly. But what really happened is, yeah, the body switch just it really surprised me. I think I kind of clued into it a little bit, if I remember correctly, when Crowley's about to go in the tub full of holy water, and he says something about this is a new jacket.
Yeah.
May I take it off? But like I said, they played really fair. They played really fair with the whole body swap thing. Sasuke, no, the creature's not mentioned in the book as far as I can remember. Because, like I said, the scene is totally not from the book. I think it was a great addition, but it wasn't in the book. Yeah, the ice cream was a clue. The body language was a clue. There,
A strawberry lolly. You know Crowley does not say lolly.
exactly.
Can I get a strawberry lolly? It's like, what? That does make me want some ice cream now, though.
But they pull it off, and to keep riots from happening, heaven and hell they're like, you just let them go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this it could cause insurrection among the ranks. You got all of these underlings in heaven and hell. They're just basically following orders for this ineffable plan. And if you find out that an ineffable plan is not ineffable and people can break that mold, you have, yeah, yeah, you have an attempt at what you would call fuck, what do you call it? Damn it, when they, a mutiny. Yes, mutiny. Sorry.
Mutiny.
My brain's not working today. Sorry, man.
You were fun.
You missed the lolly line, Sasake.
But so then we find out that they did do a body swap. And then they're sitting here, and Crawley says something really interesting. I don't think it's going to be heaven versus hell. I think it's going to be heaven and hell versus humanity, which is interesting because I think maybe that's.
Next season.
I was going to say maybe that's what's been going on since the beginning.
Maybe. Well, you could have both sides. You could have. It's been so long that they forget what the war was really about. For sure. You could go this route. I'm telling you, they could do another season, and if Gaiman works on it, it could be written well and done good. Like we've already talked about a few good points that could be the base for the story. And I would say it need to be like not do a bunch of them, but if they do, they could do one more standalone series. But I would say wait a little while if they could or something. But that's just me being an asshole. I know you don't like it. I know you don't like it.
No, I really don't like it.
But you keep bringing up stuff that's so open ended that they're gonna do something with it if they want to make some money.
One of the things that second to last thing we'll talk about. They go back to Adam, and he's grounded. Oh, probably forever. And then, well, do you think you'll be allowed to come out tomorrow? Oh yeah, they'll forget about it by then. It just totally keys you into like a child's mentality, like an 11-year-old's mentality. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It just, I will have to chase you. So he just gets out of it right
Oh,
there.
I think
He's a
it's
little
great
shit.
that he uses his powers.
Well,
If you climb through that hedgerow, I'll have to chase you. And yeah, that's just great. And then he grabs the apple and eats it. And oh, I thought it was just such an awesome moment. And I
exactly
actually wrote
right.
this.
So it's set up for next season to to go evil with an experience. No, I'm just kidding, man.
There
Keep
never was an apple that wasn't worth the trouble you got in for eating it.
going.
And it's like just sums up the entire freaking story, there never was an apple that wasn't worth the trouble you got in for eating it.
Well, any good story does that. I talked about it before. It comes right back around, and him being named Adam is apropos, I guess, if that's the right terminology. He is, I guess, the opposite, but also the same of the first Adam, and it's like you could say that the Garden of Eden nurtured them and that what Adam did was ineffable because you got to have to use this whole world for something. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but you can't think after watching all this, not God in general, but God in this show, in this book, wanted them to leave the whole time. Could have stopped any of this whenever they wanted. But saw something here. Makes me wonder if Agnes Nutter was God at some point too. Uh, that would
She's
be
the only
really
prophet who is ever 100% perfectly accurate.
yeah. Who could know all that stuff? She must have been at least tapped in. But
Divinely inspired at the very least.
yeah, for sure.
And then we cut to the scene at the end, and Azraphile and Crowley are having their dinner at the Ritz. By the way, I don't know if anybody else caught it, but Crowley asks Azraphale if he wants to go have dinner, and Azraphale had mentioned the Ritz episodes ago, and now he's like, "Oh, I think a table just opened up at the Ritz, miraculously."
Wonder how that happened. I don't know.
And
It's their first
I think
date, right?
I just think it's great. And then, once again, being a huge music fan, I love that they mentioned that for the first time ever, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square, um, and the fact that it's the classic Vera Lynn song, and Tori Amos covering it was just freaking awesome.
Nobody could hear it, man. Nobody could hear it due to all the ineffable noise. I'm just saying ineffable now because that's like every other comment in the chat has ineffable in it.
It's ineffable, you know.
Beautiful little ending. You know, and I guess you could say that they will shape the world to come and have, in a sense. Crowley's invented all this awesome internet stuff, and you know, these little miracles here and there. I do believe now Aziraphale and Crowley could do a little bigger miracles without getting in trouble, right? They could do a little more. I think push the limits more. But
Yeah, because they're kind of immune from getting in trouble, right?
yeah, now they kind of have no restrictions in a sense. I think they could go too far, but they could do whatever the hell they want. So it's kind of their heaven on earth, actually. It's pretty poetic. It really is.
No, you know, I've loved this book since the first time I read it, and I've read it so many times, and I think the show was great too. And I absolutely just adore it. Um, you know, I think it was great. Does anybody in the chat have any questions or thoughts that they'd like to share before we cut out of here?
I got a question. Does your hair hurt?
No, it does not. My son dyed it, and he knows what he's doing. So he actually, it's fine.
Don't you get snarky with me?
Now, when we were bleaching all of the black out of it to be able to dye it in the first place, I don't know what burned more, my nose or my hair, but they both burned quite a bit.
Zeta Alpha said it's I've typed enough. I agree.
Zeta Alpha, it's always good to hear from you, man.
That's hilarious, buddy.
And you know, I know Zeta Alpha doesn't do any social media, anything. So anytime he pops into anything on my channel, whether it's one of my videos or one of my live streams, like, yeah, thank you, Zeta. Thanking everybody in the chat right now: Sasuke, Julianne89, Beryl and Josh, Mackenzie L. Burns was here for a minute. Bron Holler, the one spanner who rules them all, but she had to run off.
Peter
Bobby was
Griffin.
here for a moment.
What a Bobby Catalano.
Bobby's shit.
Handmade by Bobby Catalano. Check out all this good stuff and more.
She makes some amazing stuff. Peter Griffin was here for a moment.
Giggity.
And I am looking forward to the fact that Johnny and I are going to be in the same room in just slightly over 24 hours.
That's right. John won't even know I'm in the same room with him.
So all of you, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you so much for just checking this out. Amy and I are doing a special drop tomorrow. If everything works out right, at 9 p.m. Eastern, we will be doing a special drop to talk about and ask your opinions about what Neil Gaiman work you want us to cover next, check out Johnny's channel. He has so much amazing stuff going on. And the new podcast that he has up on iTunes is great. It's with him, Justin Thomas from Fandom, and Mackenzie L. Burns, and they just talk about some great fandom stuff. So definitely also worth checking out. Yeah, just all of you, thank you so much for being here. In the meantime, before we drop out of here, Johnny, can you tell me that deep down you think I'm a bit of a good person?
No. No. I love you, John. You're an okay dude. And that's just fine. I don't care what they say about you, okay? No, I love you, man. You're awesome. We're gonna have a fun time at con. Thank you for having me on. Thank you everybody for popping in the chat. Go check out my channel, Mackenzie L. Burns channel, and the Sideline Johns. Will be bringing you some stuff from Con of Thrones. So be on the lookout for that. Y'all can see us from there. What's up, Lady Laura Dane? Starfall. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is the new JSB Crowley 2.0. Vestigial Crowley.
Well, what I do have to say before we pop out of here, first, hello, Lady Laura Dane, Starfall. Sorry you couldn't make it until now, but definitely go back in the rewatch. And also, the last thing I'm going to say today is, Johnny, you're just enough of a bastard that you're worth spending time with. Goodbye, everybody.